onto the book of Acts. And a passage which totally contradicts the last chapter of the Gospel of Luke is found in the first chapter of Acts. Luke claimed in his Gospel that on the very night that Jesus had risen from the grave, that he appeared unto the disciples, that they followed him out as far as Bethany, and that while he was blessing them, he ascended into heaven. Now we're told in the book of Acts, chapter 1, that Jesus had appeared on and off to the disciples for a full 40 days before that ascension occurred. Jesus is made to say in Matthew, Mark, and Luke that this evil, wicked generation shall receive no sign except the sign of the prophet Jonah. As Jonah was in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights, so Jesus would be in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. And the fundamentalists insist that this was literally fulfilled, that Jesus was literally in the grave for 72 hours, 3 days and 3 nights. Well, regardless of what day you decide to place the crucifixion on, and a resurrection placed early Sunday morning cannot possibly be counted back a full 72 hours to the death and burial of Jesus. It's impossible. If he died in the afternoon or was buried in the afternoon or the evening, 72 hours later would certainly not have been Sunday morning. Also, it's worth noting that in the 10th chapter of the book of Acts, Peter admits that no one except the disciples ever saw Jesus. So how was his resurrection a sign to the generation of the time? If he was not seen by them, it was not a sign to them. And Peter admits it was only the disciples who were able to see him after the resurrection. Oh, we're told by the fundamentalists that he was resurrected bodily, flesh and blood. You could touch him, you could see him. He spoke, he drank, he walked, he ate. But no one could see him except the disciples. It's also interesting to note that Jesus in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, said that after his passing, that false teachers, false prophets, false Christs would appear, doing signs and wonders. Well, who was doing those signs and wonders for the most part when we get to the book of Acts? The disciples. We move into the 2nd chapter of the book of Acts, and we're told it is now Pentecost. It is 50 days after the resurrection, and that the disciples are all gathered together, and that the Holy Spirit descended upon them as if it were flames floating over their heads, and they all began speaking in tongues. In other words, foreign languages, which could be understood by all the foreigners that were in the city of Jerusalem at the time. It's strange now that the church looks upon the ability to speak in a foreign language that one has never received any training in as a sign of demon possession. All things worth noting. In the next video, I'm going to point out a historical error in the following chapters. Thanks for listening.